Hello guys, and now we are in the model game for black side and for the Kias attack system in the Sicilian Scheveningen variation, and the game was played between Zhu Chen as white and Jan Elvest as black in Gibraltar 2007. And let's see the game: e4 c5, knight f3 e6, d4 cd4. Now knight takes d4 and knight f6, knight c3, d6, g4, h6, h4, knight c6, rook g1 and h5. This is the standard reaction for black. And gh5. Now knight takes h5. Now bishop g5, knight f6, queen d2, queen b6, knight b3. White doesn't want to enter an endgame because of black's better structure. Now a6, long castles and bishop d7. Now rook g3, the usual way to try and make progress for white. The rook can sometimes be transferred across the third rank and cause problems in the black's camp. And now queen c7 and bishop g2 and knight h5. This move is not so common. By playing it, the black player indicates that he doesn't need the option of long castling. Rather, his idea is to play the queen's rook to c8. Queen's rook to c8, then even sometimes instead of knight h5, bishop e7 was played among high level games, like the World Championship game between Karpov and Kasparov in 1984. Now rook h3, rook c8, king b1 and b5. A difficult moment for white. Where do her chances lie? The black king will definitely be staying in the center, but attacking it there is not so simple. You could think about using the standard sacrifice knight to d5 to crack open the center, but this is unlikely to be effective unless the recapture e takes d5 comes with discovered check. It turns out she lacks exactly one tempo to set this idea up properly. Now a3 may be the lesser evil. However, white is too late to prevent the thrust b4, and the game move rather gives a black way to open lines on the queen side. Here, if at all uh, to put knight d5, if at all queen e2 is played, queen e2 doesn't work because of b4, and after knight d5, ed5, ed5 check, and knight to e5 and f4. There is bishop to g4. This is winning for black. Here the computer shows to put knight d5. Now black can go queen to b8. Now knight to b4 can be played, or even knight c5, if at all it is taken, then knight to b6 comes, then if knight to d4, then knight takes d7, now king takes d7 and c3 is coming. So if at all e takes d5, rook to c3 and d4, and knight takes d4, queen b6, knight takes c6, rook takes c6 and e5, rook takes c3, queen takes c3 and bishop e7, bishop takes and king takes. This also can be played. But white played a3 and now b4 by black. Now a b4, knight takes b4, bishop f1 and e5. A very double-edged move. Black voluntarily gives up the d5 square, but he hopes to be able to place his bishop on e6 and in this way achieve something on the queen side. However, there are some snags in the plan. A logical and less committal approach was rook to b8. After all, black has to set up some ideas against the enemy king. This move would have helped him with knight takes c2 based tactics. So after d5, e5, now rook h2, rook b8. Perhaps now black realized bishop e6. If at all, bishop e6 would be well met by bishop h3 with problems for black. So now bishop h3 by white. White wants to trade off the light squared bishop now, but black plays bishop c6. Now knight d5. We see this theme very often in the Najdorf and also on other Sicilian lines, and the pattern which follows is a standard one. More often than not, this jump is a strategic mistake for white. If she is obliged to take back with a pawn, another good rule of thumb is that if the pawn recapture will be forced, black should give up his bishop for the knight rather than a knight. The principal way to play was f4, when at the cost of often crucial dark squared bishop, white manages to open some lines in the center. Here it was principal way to play was f4, and after knight takes f4, now bishop takes f4 and e takes f4, and now queen takes f4 is up for debate, but this position certainly makes greater demands of black than one after the move made in the game, because his king is now little open. But white played knight d5, and after bishop takes d5, e takes d5, bishop e7. Black was fairly happy to trade off this light squared bishop, and now uses the time to threaten to take full control of the central dark squares. Now queen c3, a nice move made possible by tactics. Now queen b6. Here queen takes c3, doesn't quite lose a piece, but the endgame is not great for black. After beat c3, bishop takes g5, and h takes g5, and then knight takes d5, knight takes d5, rook takes d5, and knight to f4, and rook to d1, uh, and now rook takes h3, rook takes h3, and knight takes h3, and rook to h1, and now rook takes b3, cb3, and knight takes g5, or even knight takes f2. Here black has some winning chances. Here black played queen b6. If at all queen b7 is played, then that allows knight to a5, which decide not to black, which is decidedly not to black's advantage. So after queen b6, now bishop e3, queen b5, bishop f1, now queen a4, bishop a7. Here it was better to put knight c1, which should have defended against the ideas of queen a2, but also left white in a rather passive position. So because here after castles, black would be ready for rook fc8, and this would bring about major difficulties for white. After bishop to a7, now rook a8, queen c7. It is understandable that white wants to create some confusion in black's camp, but this move leaves her further from safety. Here bishop to e3 was better, but black has two moves that leave him with an advantage and winning chances. That is, one is knight to f6, and the other is castle shot. Then after queen c7, as in the game, now black played short castle. Here a5 was also playable. Here black could have first gone queen a2 check, queen a2 check, and after king c1, then castles. The threats against the white king are already quite clear that white has any better significant, and in this order it is not. Then queen takes e7, transposing to the game. So here, but black played first castles, and then now queen takes e7 is a blunder. He could have played queen to a5 here. Now after queen takes a5 and knight takes a5, now rook takes a7, and now white can go c3, knight takes d5, and rook takes d5. knight to f4 and rook to d1 and rook to c8, and black is in extremely good shape. But white made the blunder of queen takes e7. Now rook fc8. Now f3. Queen a2 check. Queen a2 check and king c1. Queen takes b3. Rook d2. Here white could have played this, and after king to h7, king to h7, and what else can he play? He could have played like this. Rook takes, d takes, and then now queen a2. Anyways, black is winning here. Now rook, after rook d2, now queen queen a2 was played, and now king d1, queen b1 check, king e2, knight g3 check. The knight for so long sidelined on h5 now makes its voice heard with decisive effect. Now king f2, knight takes f1, rook h1, rook takes c2, rook takes c2, knight d3, king g2, knight f4. White resigned here because of after king f2. Now queen takes c2 check, king f1, queen e2, and then mate is coming soon. So guys, I hope you would have enjoyed the game. I'll be meeting you in the next game, model game for black side. So thank you all.